let me start. Stem cells hold the promise of treatments and cures for more than 70 major diseases that affect millions of people, such as Alzheimer's, diabetes, Parkinson's, cancer, multiple sclerosis, ALS, spinal cord injuries, blindness, HIV, and AIDS. Stem cells can also help complete organ transplants, and they can help in human cloning in the future. Here, there are two types of stem cells, and there's embryonic and there's adult. This slide shows embryonic, and dictionary.com defines embryonic stem cells as cells obtained from an embryo in the blastula phase when they are still only a few days old, because these cells can differentiate into any cell in the human body. And then adult stem cells are stem cells that is an undifferentiated cell found in among differentiated cells in a tissue or organ. So what this picture is showing is like the embryonic stem cell comes from an egg, and this adult stem cell comes from, like, it's shown as skin cell. And the adult stem cells go into, like, they only have a couple different cells they can turn into. So now that you know the difference between the two, I'm going to try to persuade you that embryonic stem cells are unnecessary and they should be banned by the government. And to shed more light on this, 68% of Americans agree with stem cell research, embryonic stem cell research. So embryonic stem cell research is unnecessary because it is immoral, unreliable, and adult stem cells can accomplish the same goals. First, embryonic stem cell is immoral. The talk about it being immoral started in 2001 when President Bush was elected as president. He changed his policy so that destroyed human embryos from in vitro fertilization clinics could be used to research. And before that, in 1995, there was the Dickey Amendment that said that no research that could damage or hurt embryos could be used in this. But the policies have changed, of course, like even since President Obama has been in, and so now he gives more money to embryonic stem cell research instead of adult stem cell research. But if the value, or the question here of why it is immoral is because we're using embryos, and so that really started after President Bush got elected. And so embryos are, it's immoral because embryos are considered a living organism, and there are 7 criteria for a living organism. And I got those from Dr. Bolliard here at Union. He's the president of the biology department. And the criteria are chemical uniqueness, complexity and hierarchical organization, reproduction, possession of genetic program, metabolism, development, and environmental interaction. And I'm going to go through how an embryo completes all of these to show you that it is actual human being. So first, an embryo possesses its own DNA, giving it chemical uniqueness at conception. The cell displays complexity and hierarchical organization as soon as it hits conception, because it's able to reproduce, and then that takes care of reproduction too. It possesses genetic program because it has 46 chromosomes at conception. It can metabolize because it gets its nutrients from the mother, and development, it goes through the cell life cycle, and sorry, I didn't know that would happen. It goes through the cell life cycle, so it develops, and environmental interaction, like I said, with metabolism, it gets its food from its mother, so it reacts to the environment. So therefore, an embryo is a living organism, and as soon as it is conceived, it has human rights. So it's immoral to use embryonic stem cells for research. Second, embryonic stem cell research is unreliable. In a study done by Howard Hughes Medical Institution, scientists after an experiment said, "We obtained blastocyst stage human embryos produced by the in vitro fertilization for clinical purposes after obtaining written consent by a Harvard Institution National Board. They got a total of 286 frozen and thawed cleaved embryos that were cultured to the blastocyst stage, and 17 individual human embryonic stem cell lines were derived, but too few of the embryos were available for them to determine systematically whether their procedural changes were effective or not. So out of the 286 embryos, only 17 human stem cell lines were created out of those, and even those, they didn't know if it was effective or not. Secondly, there are a lot of side effects of using stem cell research, which makes it unreliable. First of all, you have to take medicine for lifelong after you've been injected by embryos, so that your body doesn't reject the tissue. Secondly, they can produce big tumors that have rapid growth in adults. And thirdly, reported by the New England Journal of Medicine, was tragic side effects. They put fetal brain cells into a Parkinson's patient, and the Parkinson's patient resulted in uncontrollable movements, writhing, twisting, head jerking, arm flailing, and constant chewing. So the embryonic stem cells actually made their side effects much worse. And embryonic stem cell research yields at best meager results, and it's far distant possibilities for clinical use right now, but adult stem research is used in clinical applications now, and it's healing thousands of people today. Which brings me to my next point, that adult stem cells are accomplishing the same goals that embryonic stem cells are trying to accomplish now. So when scientists were first experimenting, adult stem cells were much harder to isolate and to differentiate. They were much harder to isolate and differentiate than embryonic stem cells. But now with the technology and research that scientists have done, the adult stem cells are just as easy to isolate and to differentiate than the embryonic. And the reason at first that scientists wanted embryonic stem cells was because they're totipotent, which means they can turn into any cell in the human body, but adult stem cells can only turn into like a couple different cells. So scientists were generally like they were more interested in the embryonic because they thought they could help them more. But since adult stem cell research has come so far, it's unnecessary to even have embryonic stem cell research and to kill the babies. So in conclusion, embryonic stem cell research is unnecessary and should be banned by the government because it is immoral, unreliable, and adult stem cell research can accomplish the same goals. As the numbers show, more people need to be aware of this situation. The government needs to clearly define the 64 lines which were presented in President Bush's amendment, and should also give the designated money for embryonic stem cell research back to adult stem research. Finally, as voters, we can elect congressmen that will go back to the Dickey Amendment so that embryos cannot be used for research. And if the government does not take action on this, there's a potential of growing humans for body parts, for changing the value of life to the value of money, and for the potential of human cloning. And furthermore, these embryos are created in God's image and were made for His pleasure, not ours.